Hi everyone, we're just waiting to start. I hope everyone's safe, everyone's doing well. It's been a crazy time. I'd love to hear from you what questions you might have across the live. We're waiting for Tanya to join in, and then we'll sort of start the session at 5 sharp. Hey, I see Tanya's joined. I'm trying to check for your hello. Hi, Tanya.
Hi, how are you? Long time.
I know it's been forever, it feels like. How have you been? How's
It's
everything now? All good? All safe?
all good, all safe, but I just feel like in spite of being double vaccinated or whatever, like in Jan, nothing's really changed with the kids at home, and then now, of course, it's like pandemonium outside. How are you?
We're okay. I mean, the team is safe so far. We've had a couple of cases of folks obviously coming down with COVID, and it was a bit of a mess actually. The last time around when it happened, it didn't matter so much, but now, of course, with hospital beds, etc. But I think now, I mean, they're fine. They're sort of, their families are fine. My family hasn't been impacted yet, so we're just crossing our fingers
Yeah,
for the
of
best.
course.
Just waiting for the vaccines to come out for people below 45 at this point in time.
I'm so frustrated with the whole situation because our hospital, the cancer center that I run, has been a vaccination center since April 1st. But frankly, we had vaccines the first week. After that, we've got them twice. Each time it's been 1/10 of what was ordered. So it runs out the same day. And for the last week, we've not had any. And I believe that's the case across all private hospitals in the city now. So it's just a disaster. May 1st is going to roll around. I really hope we have supply.
I know I am. I think we're all crossing our fingers and sort of
Yeah.
waiting for things to sort out. But I think we're almost starting off, and I was so excited about doing this, Tanya, because my team was like, "We're going to do this." I was like, "Absolutely, let's!" It's so cool because, and I don't know whether we can start. We're already chatting, so I think we
Yeah.
should. But Swati, I mean, give me the go ahead. Yeah, we'll start. We'll take it forward.
So
Am I
your
clear?
team messaged me. I actually replied saying, I was one of the first baby chakra writers, so of course happy to do it.
And Anya, do you remember? Was it Pooja Parekh who introduced us? Because I think I was moving back from the US and you were coming back at that point in time. And
I think I think Mozia. I want to
oh,
say,
yeah,
yeah.
was it? Yeah. And I just sorry, but just like live and Swati's like you're live. So, but but just like a thing over there. So right before like this is like Feb 2020, Mers and I met at the passport office. I was applying for
Okay.
a passport for Arya, her first passport, and Mers just had her second. So she was
Yeah.
passport for her second. Met and we caught up, and then of course those passports never got.
Uh,
So the irony of it, yeah, Mers had introduced us. So
yeah.
yeah, so let's kickstart. I think Swati's like it's live, and we can get going. Uh, you know,
Sure.
I think it's just important that people know a little bit about your background because I have such an interesting story. Now of course everyone knows you, for your Insta handle and for all the, the mummy stuff you do. But I know that you're actually a master's in public health, right? Columbia.
Yes.
That is like my dream school, right? So, and I think it's really that, I think the fact that while you've sort of been, of course, talking about everything to do with moms and parenting in a very fun, very approachable way, you also have this background and now to add to that, you're a published author, right?
Yeah.
Which I think is like you're just constantly sort of building out all like cool things you're doing. So just a little bit about how it started, and then we'll sort of dive into some of the more specific questions to the topic we have in hand today around, of course, how to deal with emotional social
Done.
time.
So I have a master's in public health from Columbia, but before that, I actually was in UPenn, University of Pennsylvania in Philadelphia, and I have a degree in economics and psychology. And in my last semester, I realized that I had taken so many Shakespeare courses just for the absolute love of literature and writing that I actually stayed back, did summer school, and finished a Renaissance literature degree as well. So I've always had a love and passion for writing, which used to be kind of on the back burner. And I went straight from my undergrad into my master's because I was very, very keen on being in the healthcare space. So I literally went from UPenn to New York to Columbia. I did my master's in a year and a half and went straight into working in the healthcare system in New York. My background actually is years and years of healthcare quality management work, which is what my master's is as well. It's in management and policy, but I always love to write. So I've always contributed to magazines and to articles and stuff. And then, in fact, today something came out in India today that I wrote on play-based learning for kids. So I've always just loved to write. And the blog, when Rian was born, I was on maternity leave from work, from my hospital job, and I started writing tips on my phone. I was 26. I was completely unprepared to have a baby. That too, alone in New York. My husband was doing a part-time MBA and was working full-time, so his hours were crazy. He hadn't graduated yet. And Rian was a surprise baby that kind of came out of nowhere. And so I started putting down.
I mean, surprise for sure. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
sure you think, oh, I'm sitting in New York and I'm going to have a baby right now.
No, not at all. I was so into my career and into work, and I actually did the pregnancy test at the hospital between meetings because I went to pick up cough drops from the pharmacy, and I was like, I'm just feeling really sore. We were traveling to Italy like that weekend for a wedding, and of course, one of those big Indian weddings where they expect you to drink like crazy. And I was just uneasy, and I said, let me take the test. And I did the test. I didn't realize this, but when you're so far beyond pregnant that the HCG level is so high, I only got one line, but it was the pregnant line. The control line didn't come. And so I called my dad. I was like, I don't know what's going on. He was like, take another test. So I was literally sitting on my desk drinking liters of water. I took 4 tests. All of them were positive. I still hadn't told Akshay. And my family chat, my brother's like, Bibi, I bet you're drinking Coke. Throw away the Coke. Throw away the muffin. and I worked in like this very proper like healthcare management office, but our head of quality was also a doctor, and his cabin was right across from mine. So I literally threw the Coke in the trash can, and I ran into his office, and I was like, I had like the pregnancy test in my hand at this point, right? And he, of course, immediately like orders the beta HCG test, and he's like, but if you have 4 positives, like it's positive. So I was flipping out. But Rian was born. That was literally my mindset. It was nowhere close to baby. So I started jotting down on my phone. I would put my phone on airplane mode while nursing him, and putting down points in my notes on things that I felt were helpful and things that I felt moms didn't talk about, like what to do when your diaper is leaking, or what to do when you have that diaper rash, and the things that you get all this age-old advice, sleep when the baby's sleeping, and things that are just not practical. And I felt the practical things were completely missed, and that's literally how my blog was born. I sent those notes out to someone who was having a baby, and they said, you should put this online. And I put it on a page, and like overnight it had like 1,000 hits, and so I just kept adding to it, and that's how the blog, which is another baby altogether, was born. And I think you and I connected. I was literally 4 or 5 posts in when we connected. I was still in the US.
I remember that. And I think, I remember sort of just hearing about your background, being really intrigued because, and also really resonated because, of course I don't have a master's in public health, etc., but I did work in healthcare. And, post business school, I remember that this entire piece around how do you really get across communication to moms, like practical tips and practical sort of communication, connect with moms and talk to them and sort of hear with them and learn with them on their journey, but also give practical advice along the way. How do you make that happen? And I remember when I read your blog, right, Tanya, that really stood out to me because I was like, she's really sort of put together a very practical guide, if you will, to how to, nurture and sort of raise your kids in this in this time, right, that we
Yeah.
live in. Very different paradigm from when our parents raised us, right? So, I mean, tell me a little bit more again then about the book, because how did that come? I mean, was it like a very natural evolution? Did you plan this when you started writing the first three, four lines of your blog, or did it just happen
No,
along?
so actually, because I've always loved to write, like being an author has kind of always been one of the goals in my head, but I have a list of million if you actually go there. And it was just one of those dreams that was like, would be nice to do someday, but didn't happen. But then I reached a point with the blog where I felt that it was doing well. So I literally copy pasted all my blogs onto a Word document and said, okay, how do I make this into something more concrete? And if you see the book, it's not actually so much of a copy of the blog because it took me 2 years to rewrite the content. And then I sent it out to a couple places, and Penguin got back almost immediately, which was amazing. But it was so funny because they were working with me on editing it, but they hadn't at any point said, yes, we'll do this. And they kept saying, try and do it in this way, try and add anecdotes. And I would keep rewriting sections and send it to them. And they send me more corrections and more rewrites. And 2 years into that, I woke up one day and it was literally like, okay, we're going ahead with this, and here is the contract. And so, I mean, it was amazing that that actually happened. I remember I was in New York on holiday when I got that email and practically fell off the bed saying, okay, after all that work, it's actually happening. But so the book is actually very different from the blog because if you read it, it's actually very anecdotal. Each chapter starts with a story. And I feel the main purpose of the book is that I just felt that parenting as a journey can be very isolating. Even though you're talking to people and you're connected, everyone's kind of on a different wavelength. And so, and no one really talks about the fact that a new mom is overwhelmed. The focus is always the baby, but the focus from the mom kind of goes away. And so, this is very much trying to put the focus back on the mom and being like, here are some tips to help you feel empowered and to help you feel like you're not alone. So, it starts with labor and delivery, and it talks about postpartum recovery and how to get back to working out. And then it goes into the baby stuff, but it's more like introducing your pet and your baby, introducing siblings, dealing with toddler tantrums. And then that's in tip form and practical form, which is what has copied over from the blog is that it's supposed to be very, very easy, digestible tips. And I know people who've like got the book and read it in a night because it's just an easy read.
How lovely. And I mean, I'm taking away two things from this. One, that it takes longer to publish a book than to have a baby. It took you 2 years to have a baby. And secondly, lucky for you, Tanya.
Yes, it is.
New York for some reason. So, I think I want to touch upon this point. You mentioned this isolation, right? And you talk, and I think it's a very important point. I mean, and I think in your book, you kind of address this whole aspect of moms feeling the isolation of going through the journey of pregnancy and parenting. But, I also want to sort of talk about the isolation that kids are feeling today, right? I mean, and your book is called, All You Need to Know About Parenting, right? And I think what I really want to sort of go a little deeper is I want to know a little bit more about your thoughts on pandemic parenting and the impact it's having on kids, right? So can you tell us, just tell us a little bit more about, the sort of the social, emotional, cognitive impact that, you're sort of seeing from your conversations with other mothers that the pandemic is having and sort of your thoughts on how to address some of the issues that come out. It's a natural sort of result of this, right? But some thoughts on that. And then I have a couple of other very specific questions on the
So,
same.
when things first happened last March, I think it was March 12th when schools were announced as closed. I think everyone was just hoping that it's a matter of a week. Something will happen, something will come up, things will change, and the kids will go back to school. And I feel like at that point we were so focused on like, okay, how do we get through this day, how do we get through this, and how do we as parents adjust to homeschooling, that I feel like the kids emotional needs kind of got sidetracked. And it's not, I know I'm guilty of it. I know most of the people I've spoken to were taking it a day at a time. And even now if you talk to moms, it's like last March was such a long month, and it was such a painful and torturous month. And it was because we hadn't made our peace with the situation. And when you're not at peace with what's going on, I mean, still no one's at peace with it, but if you've not even accepted it, it's hard to kind of look outside yourself. I remember talking to my best friend while he was on the way home from work on March 12th when this thing was announced, and I was literally like, okay, but it's a matter of a week or two, things will get back to normal, and we were like, maybe we won't meet for a few weeks, but okay, but we're supposed to be traveling in April, we're supposed to be traveling in May, things will normalize by then, and it went to 9 months without meeting anyone else, and so that wasn't just 9 months for me, but it was 9 months for the kids as well until they saw another face of anyone their age. Our building doesn't have too many kids, but even when they were going down, it would be based on what the news was saying that day, based on how comfortable you felt. And with masks on, my kids are so used to at this point keeping their masks on that even yesterday I posted a picture from the garden. They were both sitting on the floor, just two of them, nobody else from the building in the garden, but with their masks on. So I feel like there's a physical change that they've had to adapt to. And I remember they started going down before I did, and got used to the mask. And my mom was saying, you should go down for a walk as well. I was doing lives in the evening every
Yeah.
day at that point, and I was like, I can't imagine keeping a mask on for an hour. And then at some point, I was like, my kids are doing it. So if they're keeping their mask on the entire hour or 2 hours that they're down, I can do it as well. But I feel socially, so my daughter is a lot more confident, and I think that comes out in whatever content she's in. Rian is really shy, and he's a lot like, so for me, I'm someone who's very introverted. It takes a lot of push to get me to be out and be social, and he's exactly like that. And I felt when last March, at that point, he was just settling into like infant school and into first grade and stuff, and I felt like he was just about getting used to his class and coming out of his shell. And when I think March was so much about us dealing with our day-to-day thing that by April, when moms kind of centered themselves and realized that, okay, this might be the long haul, summer holidays got cancelled, schools said they're staying online for a longer time. And it was just really hard to kind of come to terms with, okay, this is their normal as well. My son was coming to my room almost every night with nightmares and coming into my bed. So, that was his way of manifesting whatever was going on. I felt even when we FaceTime people, by like April, all the Zoom birthdays started. And when he would be on camera, he would just be even more shy, and he wouldn't say a word, and he wouldn't want to show his face. And it was just their way of dealing with everything that was going on, not being able to make peace with being on the screen, having nightmares at night, and just like their anxiety levels manifest in a whole bunch of different ways. I felt that he was coming up with these weird tics and habits. He was grinding his teeth at night, which I could hear when he was sleeping next to me. He was constantly complaining of nightmares. So they go through all kinds of stuff that it's not easy for them to come out and say. And as moms, often when we're dealing with our own stuff, I would say even now we're back to last March when we're dealing with family members and friends asking for oxygen and asking for beds. And I mean, the situation's so much worse that it's hard for us to step back and say, okay, what are my kids going through right now? Let me make them feel special. So if you see, I did a really silly reel yesterday, which was just, and they had such a blast recording it because I was like, you know what, Rian, school is out. It's summer holidays for you. Let's do something really stupid and really fun. And I was like, oh, put on your glasses, put on the music, let's dance. And it was just that. And in the middle of this, you have to kind of focus your energy back on them as well, as hard as it is, and say, what are they going through, because their lives are changing as well.
Yeah. And Tanya, like on a zero or a scale of 0 to let's say 10, right? I mean, for instance, I have a 2.5-year-old Arya,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I think it's I mean, she's never sort of experienced actually a life of social interaction. So I don't even know how to contextualize it now. I mean, for her, like the mask is the new normal, right? I mean, it's like if I'm stepping out of my flat onto the foyer outside, like mama mask, I mean, it's very normal. But like, on a scale of 0 to 10, if you were to sort of help parents who are sort of watching this session contextualize and understand the level of, either emotional or sort of just the sort of the stress, the tension their parents, the kids are feeling, how would you help them define that scale and help them understand where their kids fall on that scale? Like, are there any, 0 is like absolutely normal, no change in behavior, is like extreme. So could you help us sort of understand some of these milestones?
Yeah, so I would say that between my two kids, I see that difference because Kiara's adapted to everything a lot easier. She'll say, call this friend, FaceTime so and so, and she's comfortable with it. But at the same time, if I sit down and ask her, Kiki, where's your school, or what was school like? Tell me about your classroom. Even to name her friends, at some point, I realized that Zoom school, they've been shuffled. And in the last 2 years, I mean, a lot of her friends have left to go to big schools. She's in nursery still, and I was like, tell me the names of the kids in your class. And she couldn't name two kids in her class. You know, the only person, because the screen is on the teacher, they're not focusing on anyone else. If she hears the teacher name a couple other people, she knows, okay, there's this child in my class or there's that child, because the teacher has said that name, but they can't actually put faces to it. So you know, I would say she's still, because she doesn't remember what normal life is like, she's it's been easier for her to adjust. For Rian, he'll keep talking about, okay, when we went on this holiday, or when we were in New York, or when we went here, and he, being an introverted, shy child, having gone back in his shell, I would say it takes him, like, even when I FaceTime, yesterday I FaceTime my grandmom, and Kiara and I were chatting with her for 20 minutes. Rian was in a Zoom class. He came out and I put the phone on him and he just wouldn't speak. So, you know, so these are two extremes of it. And then there are lots of degrees in between as well. But I would say, as a mom, if you're looking out for signs in your kids that you need to be alert of something, look for disturbances in their sleep patterns, look for disturbances in their food habits, see how they communicate. FaceTime friends, FaceTime family, see how easily it is for them to communicate, because that's something that gets, I mean, you see very often I should tell people that, okay, my son takes time to open up, so let him have his time, because I just feel like he won't say a word. Like even yesterday with my grandmother, he just wasn't speaking. And she's like, Rian, I can't hear you. Rian, speak louder. I can hear Kiara. I can't hear you. And, you know, I took the phone and I was like, you know, we'll call you later because he's just finished his class. He's tired, and let me play with him. But I also feel that a lot of this is bridged by communicating with your kids. So sit them down when you feel that they're in a receptive mood. Very often for my kids, it's bedtime. Read them stories, read them things, or even tell them stories. I make up stories about, like, my first drive in New York, when I was working, and like the one time my car got into an accident, or being pulled over by cops. And these are such novel experiences for them. And then instead of filling the silence, ask them a specific question about, like, have you ever been in that situation, or have you ever, and then see them open up, because it's just a great way to get them to open up and to talk. And then they kind of bring out their and voice their fears as well. So communicating with your kids is the best way to figure out where they're at mentally and emotionally as well. But watch out for red flags in their communication, in their sleep patterns, in their food habits as well, in their willingness to play. These are all really big signs that your kids are not doing as okay as you might think that they are.
I think that's really a fantastic set of pointers and very practical pointers, right? I mean, these are normal. How are they sleeping? How are they eating? How are they responding to conversations in the family?
Yeah.
I think these are very sort of clear watch outs, and if something is off the normal and very off the normal, then that itself is like tells you where your child falls stress, right? The other question we see a lot of baby chakra, Tanya, is around none of us are leading disciplined lives per se today, right? Because like you said this earlier, right? I mean, it depends on the news, right? I mean, your whole routine changes, your life changes on what is happening outside. So a lot of parents are basically, asked on baby chakra as well, and they've been curious to know, how do you sort of set your children up for a life of not discipline, but some sort of structure, some sort of coherence, and then of course, like sort of ensuring that that without sort of forcing them, but they learn how to practice basic, eat healthy, practice good hygiene. I think some of our kids, of course, have taken to masking because they sort of mimic what they see outside, but on some of these aspects.
So honestly, the first thing is that they watch everything that we're doing, even when we don't think they're noticing stuff they do. Rian will very often hear conversations I've had and then ask me questions about it, and I might not even have realized that he was listening. And a lot of their panic as well comes from the things that they hear us say. So be careful about what you say around them. That's one. But I actually think that over the last year, my kids' meal times have gotten healthier and their food habits have gotten healthier, and so have mine, because we've never really sat down and eaten lunches as a family. And that's something that for a year of lockdown, we started doing it. My parents are in the same building. My mom's actually been traveling for the last 2 months. So we're having meal times on my dining table down. But meal time used to be the kids would eat on their own. I'd sit with them and read to them or play. And then I'd eat on my own. And then Akshay, my husband, would eat on his own when he's free. Now we have like a family lunch and we put our our phones away. There are no phones on the dining table, and we play games. So what we've been doing this week is we were playing this game called Connect, where each person says one word and the next person says another word, and you see how it goes. This week we started doing that with stories. So Kiara starts a story, and hers usually starts with like a giant doll, and then Rian will say something that happens to the doll, and then they'll say, okay, we want the story to end up in space. So the next person will add in a rocket or an alien or something like that. Actually, what we've been doing on the dining table is we've been chatting and we've been making up stories and been doing things. But while that's happening, we're also eating the same meal as a family. So what they're eating for dinner or lunch is what I'm eating, and I'm not a very healthy eater. So I would say that because I know they're watching, I'm eating better as well. Yesterday, Akshay was having cauliflower rice and it had peppers and stuff in it. And he said, "Do you want to try it?" And I was dying to make a face. I was like, there's no way I'm eating anything with tomato and broccoli and stuff in it. And so I just had to go, you know what? I'm actually really full because I didn't want the kids to see me make a fuss about food. But so we've been eating exactly the same meals, and they're picking up a lot of habits based on what I'm doing. And even the masking, the pleases and thank yous are something that was a big struggle with my son. I don't know why, just those words wouldn't come out of his mouth, and for my daughter it's come so easily. So now I'm so particular when at home that every time I ask for help or even ask for water or a napkin or anything, I'll say please and I'll say thank you, and I know that they'll say, okay, Dada didn't say it today. So now they've learned to pick up on these things, you know. So it's just teaching them habits by being around them. And frankly, at this point, we're so much bigger a part of their lives than we would have been 2 years ago, because our interaction will be diluted by the interactions of their friends and the things they're learning from their teachers and the things that they're seeing outside. But right now, you're pretty much like 50% and your husband probably 50% of their social interaction, especially in a nuclear family. So they're mimicking and learning even more from us than they were before.
Yeah, and I think, I know we're running out of time, but I do want to ask you a couple of questions and open it up for the other questions you've got coming in. You sort of beautifully actually segued into my question, which is around equal parenting, right? And your book is about that. Your book is about parenting, and how to sort of think about parenting overall, right? As a unit of the husband and the wife, or as different spouses, different partnerships, whatever format that might take on. So, given that all of us are working, most of us are, working, be it like working for someone else or working for the home, life is really stressful for parents as well. I mean, any thoughts that you have, especially I think in light of the fact that, you've mentioned that, and we all know this, right? That kids mimic our behaviors. They sort of absorb our stress levels as well. Any thoughts that you have in terms of how, the partnership in, let's say, a married couple or between spouses, or how that can play out in a very healthy way, in a very nurturing way, so that kids don't get impacted by all the stress and emotional pressure we feel.
So, my husband was just traveling for 40 days. He's just come back from Delhi, and then post that we had to isolate him for 10 days before he was even allowed to come into the house, because with this strain affecting kids, I'm just really, really particular about anyone being around them. So I would say that we had an uneven balance. For a while, but as soon as he came back, I said, okay, this is what I need. So I think people need to be really clear about where they need help. For me, the 40 days that he wasn't here was Rian had just gone to a bigger class, Kiara had just gone to a bigger class, and the responsibilities in terms of their homeschool was suddenly so much more. Rian went from being on Zoom for 45 minutes to 4 hours a day, and hers goes on 2 hours simultaneously. And my house is really, really small. This is an 800 square feet apartment with literally 2 bedrooms and one really tiny dining room where I can hear everything. So I log him in at 7:50, then I was logging her in at 8:50, at which time I've already put him in on his second class. At 9:10 he gets a break. 9:30 I'm logging him back in. 9:40 she finishes. 9:50 I'm logging her back in. And then simultaneously I'm taking calls. I'm consulting with Naiyya Fashion, and that takes up a lot of my mornings in terms of content. And I have my own hospital calls and work calls as well. So it's like I'm on calls in my bedroom, and I'm running between their rooms as well. So the moment Akshay came back, I was like, my mornings, like my brain is exploding. At 10:30, when there's a lull, I run to the gym, I come back, and then I get back on my thing. And I was like, since their schools have shifted, I'm now showering at 2 in the afternoon because like I'm just not getting a breather for a second until they're logged off. So I was like, you know what? You need to sit with her and handle one, and you need to then give me the freedom to work at that point and just handle the logins for one child. And bedtime, I was like, I can take bedtime off my hands because at night my brain is so fried. All I want to do is lie down and stare at the ceiling or the fan, if nothing else. I mean, can't. So by bedtime, I'm just done. Then if you tell me to sit down and read 3 books or 4 books or whatever, it's not happening. And I'm snappy, and then I'm crabby that I snapped. So that gets really difficult. So I feel talk to your partner. Again, communication is the most important thing. Tell them the things that you're not able to handle and have them figure out how they're going to step in for you. Because at some point, when offices had resumed, I remember calling Akshay in the middle of the day and saying that, and he's like, I'm not getting enough hours in the office. You're telling me to come back to help by like 7, 8. I have to leave from Andheri to be back home to help you with bedtime. And I was like, you know what? You're getting like from 10 to 5 in the office, and that's like 7 more hours than I was getting than I'm getting at this point. And I'm someone who used to be in the office every day. So you need to at some point tell me when you're going to step in. And he actually turned around and told me that, okay, let me try and work from home 2 days, and then you can go to work 2 days a week. I'll go in 3. So we had that schedule all figured out. And then of course now we're all back on home schedules and no one's stepping out again. But it's
No,
really important to put down what you feel your limits are.
I believe in that as well. I keep on telling my team as well. Forget my husband. I keep on
Yeah.
telling my team as well that if you don't tell me what you need solved, I can't
Yeah.
solve it. Right? So unless you communicate with your
Yeah.
other, you just can't solve it. So I think communication.
Absolutely.
I know, Tanya, we're kind of out of time, but I do want to ask you one question and then move on to the open questions.
Sure.
The entire sort of topic was around, the sort of tips in terms of helping parents think about activities and habits to inculcate during a time like this so stressful. So any specific, maybe 2 or 3 tips that you think are absolutely essential for parents to keep in
Yeah.
mind to work with the kids on?
So I would say number one is don't schedule everything. I did a IGTV on this also recently because I feel like people are saying what activities and what board games and how do we keep them up to speed. And let's keep in mind that this is pandemic life. Don't stress so much about keeping them up to speed. Put the stress on keeping them sane and keeping yourself sane. So today was just one of those days where I've been responding to vaccine and oxygen and remdesivir questions since morning. And I was like, you know what, play. And I gave them, and they took the magnetiles and they took their dolls and they made houses and they played with magnetiles the entire day. So I would say number one is don't stress about scheduling everything. If you want to sit back and let them figure out how to play themselves, that's actually a great way for them to like learn how to role play, learn how to problem solve, and it puts less pressure on you. That's number one. But also, so we do a lot of board games as well. On a day like this, I'm not going to get the time to do it, but I would say that like on a daily basis, we play games, we do things together. When I'm really tired, we lie in bed, and Kiara loves watching reels of pets. So even that, like, just something that you bond over, something you're smiling over, something you're giggling over is fine. And I would say that, like, for me, I'm someone who would never give them screen time. It would be 1 hour on the weekends and nothing on the weekdays. But frankly, at this point, you're home 24/7 trying to entertain them and trying to work. It's okay if you're frustrated and say, take the screen for an hour and let me get my closet cleaned or let me finish these calls. I have calls where I'll be like, okay, do something, entertain yourself. I'm locking my door for an hour and getting this call done because this is an hour that I cannot be disturbed. I'm dealing with something important. So I feel like while you're figuring out how to do activities for your kids, also keep in mind not to pressurize yourself with your regular rules and limits and stuff. It's okay if you give them the screen once in a while. It's okay if you sit back and let them figure out how to play with themselves. But then also give them quality time when you're giving them your full attention and you put your screens away. So it has to be a balance of both because that's going to keep them feeling like they are as important to you as they are. And at the same time, you're getting a break when you can as well.
Yeah, no, I think it's really important. I'm going to sort of end with the last question. I think a lot of us are facing this, right? This mom has said that I have a small house and my kids don't have a privilege, and frankly, none of us do today, to go out and do physical activities,
Yeah.
right? How do I keep them sort of active in this, especially in this period? Because earlier, I remember the first lockdown, at least kids could go out, right? That's not happening right now. So any tips? You mentioned you.
So we actually did online classes. Rian, for like through the first lockdown, he did online football and he was doing drills and he was doing classes, and Kiara was doing it with them. So I would say there's a lot of options on Playdate and on different websites. I know Footy First has a ton of like online classes. Our judo class, which Rian used to do in person, is now online. So I make sure that they get that, and it's just drills and an exercise. And even though we're really cramped on space, like I said, we have a really small apartment. All they need is like 6, 7 feet where they can like stretch out and do their planks and core and stuff. So even for the little ones, Kiara's 4, but she's doing it. She's doing little running drills and she's picking up cones and she's going around in circles. I think it's important for them to have that. So because we're in a building without too many kids and my kids are good at keeping their masks on, I'm letting them go down to the garden to play. Akshay has taken them down today, and I know he'll make them run around and get some exercises in as well. But I would say take a little space, do it for yourself as well. Don't just make them work out, you do it with them. So my kids know that like the gym is a really important part of my day, and very often they're imitating me and doing it with me.
Fantastic. So I know a lot of actually other questions. Swati's been pinging me for a while, but we were, having this chat. But I'm hoping it's okay in case you answer them later. Maybe someone can respond from your end on the
sure.
Separately.
Absolutely.
But it's been fantastic chatting with you, Tanya. I think it's of course wonderful to catch up after so long, but I think it's important that you're sort of ensuring a dialogue on parenting, which is so inclusive. And which actually puts mums in the center of things as well, to a large extent, right? And I think your book is going to be really important for that to play out, I think, in India, because I think in India, a lot of people are now just putting the child first always, if forgetting about the mother perspective.
True.
So we're excited about your book coming out. Looking forward to buying it as well. And is it available on Amazon? Is it available? Where is it available?
Yes, it's available Amazon, Kindle, Flipkart, and in stores when they open as well. But I know like Crosswords is on Swiggy, and the book is one of the options on there. So it's very easily available everywhere. Thank you so much. Looking forward to getting feedback on that.
Great. Okay. All right. Thanks so much, Tanya. Stay safe.
Thank you for having me. Take care.
All right. Bye. Cheers.
Bye.